Recording in progress.
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. Honorable members, the Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 27, Office of the Chief Justice Appropriation Bill.
Honorable members, I will now recognize the Honorable Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Let me acknowledge the Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Andrew Snell, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Constitutional Development, Honorable Xola Ngola, and members of the Portfolio Committee, Advocate Potgieter, Acting Secretary General, and the collective leadership in the Office of the Chief Justice, distinguished guests, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. 30 years ago, on the 8th of May, the Constitutional Assembly adopted our country's world-renowned constitution. When the founding father of our democratic nation, President Nelson Mandela, spoke on the day when our constitution was adopted, he called to the attention that through our constitution, our nation had found a way to turn our diversity into a source of strength. He pointed to the many fundamental rights that were previously denied to so many in our nation in the past, now enshrined in the Bill of Rights. He joyously declared that the right of each and every person to the basic necessities of life, shelter, food, water, healthcare, and education has by consensus become one of our fundamental guarantees through our constitution. Become one of our fundamental guarantees through our constitution. Since that day in 1996, various administrations representing the will of the people have pursued the constitutional injunction to respect, protect, and promote and fulfill the rights in the Bill of Rights. The Constitution gives our courts the authority to apply the Constitution and the law impartially without fear, favor, or prejudice in fulfilling of the rights to access to the courts as outlined in Section 34 of the country's basic law. Section 39 provides further details in regard to the manner in which our courts should interpret the Bill of Rights to ensure the rights are respected, protected, promoted, and fulfilled. In particular, Section 39 provides that when interpreting any legislation and when developing the common law or customary law, every court, tribunal, or forum must promote the spirit, purported, and objects of the Bill of Rights. The Constitution recognizes the importance of the role of the courts in the fulfillment of the Bill of Rights and the functioning of our democracy, and as such, instructs all organs of state through various measures to assist and protect the courts to ensure their independence, impartiality, dignity, accessibility, and effectiveness. Regarding the development of jurisprudence, the Constitutional Court, established in 1994, has delivered numerous landmark judgments that have transformed the legal landscape, uphold fundamental rights, and democratic principles. Key cases include certification of the Constitution, in which the court ruled on whether the new Constitution complied with agreed principles, paving the way for South Africa's constitutional democracy, ruling that the death penalty was unconstitutional in S versus Mokwanyane. enforcing the rights to housing in the Grootboom case, August versus Electoral Commission, which upheld the rights of prisoners to vote, confirming the universal right to suffrage, and legalizing same-sex marriages in the Minister of Home Affairs versus Fourie. These cases, honorable members, often center on socio-economic rights, equality, and accountability, which has reaffirmed our transformative jurisprudence and constitutional democracy and constitutional supremacy. Significant progress has also been made on the transformation of the South African judiciary itself, which focuses on diversifying judicial appointments guided by the Constitution to creating a non-racial, non-sexist, and accessible legal system. At the advent of our democracy in 1994, our judiciary comprised of 165 judges, of which 160 were white males, 3 black men, 2 white women, and no black woman in that court. For the past 30 years, honorable members, there's been a deliberate elevation of black and female judges, and the judiciary is now composed of approximately 50% of Africans, 11% of coloreds, 8.6% of Indians, 30.3% of white judges. Of this, 49% are black women, of whom there were none in 1994. And I can assure you, with the recent appointments that President has done, announced by today, we actually, out of the 12 judges, 8 of them are women. Honorable members, the budget vote of the Office of the Chief Justice, the OCJ, must therefore be understood within this context. The OCJ plays a critical role in supporting the Chief Justice in the exercise of a constitutional and leadership responsibility over the judiciary. In this regard, the budget allocation to OCJ is not merely an administrative provision, but a strategic investment in judicial governance, the effective functioning of the superior courts, and the advancement of an independent and capable system of court administration. The OCJ has been allocated a budget of almost 3.4 billion for the 26-27 financial year, which operationalizes through its 3 programs, namely administration, superior court services, as well as judicial education and support. This allocation also includes approximately 1.4 billion from the direct charges allocation for the remuneration of judges. The OCJ will further leverage on and once-off allocation that we have been able to make for the 26-27 financial year from the CARA, Criminal Asset Recovery account, to the value of 127 million as an additional mechanism to support and strengthen safety, security, and proper court administration. This funding will complement existing resources to enhance the judicial capacity. Demonstrating the government's commitment to strengthening the capacity of the courts, the OCJ has received in the financial year 26-27 compared to previously, 883.8 million being transferred from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development to the OCJ as part of the transfer of responses, the resources that we needed to do in terms of financial functions and what we had committed as part of phase 1 approach. Transitioning towards judicial institutional independence, the financial allocation must also be understood in the context of the phased-in approach transition towards single and judiciary-led court administration. President Ramaphosa has committed to transforming the judiciary into a fully independent arm of state comparable to the executive and the legislature. This announcement was made last year and we remain committed to it. Government remains ensuring that this will happen within the timeframes that we have been able to commit. And this, we believe it will happen in a manner that is responsible, orderly, and sustainable. In this regard, consultations have commenced with relevant stakeholders with a view to fully realize this provision of Section 165 of the Constitution. This transition is not about disruption or abrupt structural change. Rather, it is about building stable, credible, and accountable administration, governance, and financial capabilities required to support a stronger and more independent institutional model, while ensuring continuity in court operation and maintaining public confidence in the court system. Phase 1 of the transition to institutional independence took effect from the 1st of April 2026 and marked a significant milestone in the transfer of retained and shared services relating to the Superior Court from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development to OCJ. The services transferred include security services, guardian services in the Superior Court, close protection services to judges facing threats to their life, repairs and maintenance of security infrastructure in courts, transit cash in transit services, reimbursement of judges for security measures installed at their private residence. The transfers also include facilities management services, such as day-to-day maintenance, plan maintenance, minor capital, lease management, municipal services, and other related measures. In addition to this, the library services have been included together with the CRT services that need to run the courts. These transitional arrangements will further inform and be incorporated into the broader organizational structure review processes. The transferred shared services have been provided to the OCJ within the framework of service level agreement and an MOU concluded between the two organizations. Phase 2, honorable members, will include the promulgation of enabling legislation to establish the judiciary as a co-equal branch of government alongside the executive and legislature, and we intend to introduce this year that legislation. We're looking forward to the support by members of parliament. The implementation of the court online system remains key priority of the OCJ, and as part of the broader modernization and of court administration services. Honorable members will remember that in terms of this process, we have been able to successfully roll out the court online system to all the courts, 21 superior courts. The remaining 3, Toyando High Court, Constitutional Court, and Superior Court, will be rolled out this year, and including further the work in terms of the criminal module will be rolled out this year. So this work is quite important because it focuses us into ensuring that we're deepening the improvement of system utilization, strengthening user support, but also ensuring that there's efficiency, transparency, and implements modern court processes for us. Honorable members, through once-off funding allocated from Criminal Assets Recovery Account, which is CARA, the OCJ will refresh courts' recording technology and support the further installation of scheduling and operation support in identified courts. This is aligned to CARA mandate of supporting victims, strengthening law enforcement capabilities, and combating crime. In the 26-27 financial year, the OCJ will also prioritize the maintenance of reliable and secure courtroom operations through the assessment, maintenance, and repairs of existing CRT equipments. Honorable members, many of you have raised concerns about security in the superior courts, and therefore it's increasing challenges by combination of rising threats and intimidation directed at presiding officers, particularly those who are handling cases of organized crime, gang-related activities, and high-profile litigation. We have taken this as part of our infrastructure improvement, where we need to close in terms of weaknesses that exist around court issues, including limitation in access control and perimeter security. But one of the areas that we are looking at is to ensure that there is also moving into virtual platforms to be able to do the work. In improving efficiency in superior court services, honorable members, the OCJ will continue to improve the efficiency in superior court services by ensuring the timely finalization of quasi-judicial matters within prescribed timeframes and by strengthening support for the judicial case management flow. As we know, many of the people have been raising that there is a need to improve participation or capacity there, but also ensuring that the dates are issued in time. Again, the other area that we are reflecting in this budget is gender mainstreaming. You would remember, members, that the Chief Justice actually launched a permanent gender desk, which within the private office. This is one of the critical areas that needs to be implemented because it assures us to ensure that those who are working within the judiciary are protected from sexual harassment, and therefore the OCJ has driven the implementation of the judiciary sexual harassment policy They have done training across the country to ensure that all those who work within the OCJ, including the judges, understand this. Progress has also been made in advancing gender representation, where we've seen women comprising of 52% in terms of senior management level. And this will continue to be the work that needs to be done. As I can conclude, honorable members, the judiciary as an independent arm of the state is indispensable to the success of our constitutional democracy. It is entrusted with safeguarding and enforcing the Constitution and all other laws of the Republic. As the executive, we remain committed to supporting and strengthening a judiciary that operates independently and is accountable only to the Constitution and the law. Through the OCJ and other mechanisms, we continue to advance this objective, and we call on this House to join us in upholding and protecting judicial independence. Chairperson, honorable members, I therefore present the 2026-2027 Budget Vote 27 of the Office of the Chief Justice for your support and approval, together with all the priorities and the program implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I will now recognize Honorable Mutaung.
Thank you, House Chair, honorable members, Honorable Minister and Deputy Minister. The African National Congress rises in support of Budget Vote 27 and the 2026-2027 Annual Performance Plan of the Office of the Chief Justice. The APP before us demonstrates a conscious effort to align the work of the judiciary with the priorities of the 7th administration, the Medium-Term Development Plan, 2026 State of the Nation Address, and the physical realities confronting our country. The ANC has always maintained that a capable, ethical, and developmental state requires an independent, efficient, and accessible judiciary. This APP directly advances that objective through its strategic outcomes of effective administration support, improved court efficiency, and enhanced judicial performance. What is particularly important for the ANC caucus is that the Office of the Chief Justice is not merely tabling aspirational commitments, but measurable indicators with clear quarterly targets. This demonstrates a seriousness about accountability and performance monitoring. Chairperson, the first area we wish to highlight is the strengthening of institutional capacity and governance. The APP places significant emphasis on achieving and sustaining clean governance. The target of maintaining an unqualified audit opinion with no material findings throughout the MTEF period is welcomed and reflects responsiveness to the concern consistently raised by the Auditor General South Africa. The ANC welcomes the corrective measures reflected in the APP, including stronger procurement controls, improved financial disclosure compliance, and tighter monitoring of fraud investigations. The target to investigate 75% of reported fraud cases within 90 working days is an important accountability measure. Equally important is the commitment that 100% of valid invoice will be paid within 30 days. This is not merely an administrative matter. It is part of supporting economic activity, protecting small businesses, and ensuring that the state honors its obligations. Chairperson, the APP also reflects the transformation agenda of the ANC, target for women representation at senior management service level, and the representation of persons with disability demonstrate commitment to a public service that reflects the demographics and aspirations of our people. The ANC further welcomes the progress towards the institutional independence of the judiciary. The completion of phase 1 of the institutional independence project marks a significant democratic milestone. Shared services previously administered through the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development have now been transferred to the OCJ. This strengthens the judiciary as an autonomous and meaningful player within the justice and security cluster, while preserving the constitutional principle of separation of powers. However, Chairperson, institutional independence must be matched by institutional capacity. The APP correctly identifies financial sustainability, ICT modernization, and security risk as the key challenges. The ANC therefore welcomes the investment in ICT infrastructure, court recording system, and digitization initiatives. The rollout of court online to additional supervisor courts and the development of criminal module are critical interventions towards a modernized justice system that responds to the needs of the people. These interventions are fully aligned with the ANC manifesto commitment to modernize the state and expand access to services through digital innovation while ensuring that physical access to justice is not undermined. Chairperson, the conditions, the OCJ has acknowledged the pressure created by the transfer of shared services, and it has transparently indicated a project shortfall of 57.4 million. The ANC appreciates the fiscal discipline approach reflected in the APP through reprioritization, phased implementation, and engagement with National Treasury via the MTEF process rather than recklessly expenditure commitments. Importantly, the APP remains service delivery oriented despite these constraints. The target relating to court recording functionality, uninterrupted court operations despite water and power disruptions, and strengthened court security all contributes directly to the improving public confidence in the justice system. Chairperson, the ANC understands that justice delay is justice denied. For this reason, we support measures that improve operational efficiency and build a judiciary that is accessible, ethical, responsive,
Honorable
and
Mutamu,
technological capable.
your
The
time has
ANC
expired.
therefore support Budget Vote 27
you.
and 2026 Annual Performance
you,
Plan of the
Honorable
Office of the
Mutamu.
Chief Justice. Thank you, Chair.
I will now recognize Honorable Manyi.
Thank you, House Chair. Umkhondo's party rises to give an accurate account of Budget Vote 27. South Africa cannot build a credible justice system on the foundations of austerity, administrative decay, and constitutional inconsistency. While the Office of the Chief Justice is presented as a pillar of judicial independence, the reality reflected in this report is that judiciary is being asked to carry an expanding mandate with insufficient and unstable resources. The report itself admits that the Office of the Chief Justice faces projected shortfall of some 57.4 million in functions that are absolutely central to the court operations, including security, ICT systems, facilities management, and court recording technology. These are not peripheral matters. When recording systems collapse, when courts lose electricity and water, when files disappear and hearings are postponed, justice itself is delayed and denied. The MK party notes that the Office of the Chief Justice receives only 1.2% of the total peace and security allocation. Yet courts are expected to sustain the constitutional order, protect rights, and uphold the rule of law amid worsening operational conditions. This imbalance exposes a dangerous state priority. Billions continue to flow towards cohesive state machinery while institutional capacity of the courts deteriorates. We further note that over 70% of the OCJ budget is consumed by compensation of employees. While judicial and administrative personnel are indispensable, this leaves very little fiscal space for infrastructure, digitization, cybersecurity, maintenance, and court modernization. A system cannot function effectively when operational support systems are collapsing around judicial officers. The MKA party welcomes in principle the movement towards greater judicial institutional independence. However, independence cannot merely mean transferring functions from one underfunded institution to another underfunded institution. True judicial independence requires sustainable financial autonomy, administrative capability, and democratic legitimacy rooted in sovereignty of the people. We therefore caution against a model of judicial independence that gradually elevates judiciary into an insulated technocratic sphere detached from the democratic accountability. No arm of the state should evolve into an untouchable institutional enclave. Independence must coexist with accountability. A justice system cannot effectively operate when support systems are collapsing around judicial officers. The MK party, true judicial independence requires sustainable financial autonomy, administrative capability, and democratic legitimacy rooted in the sovereignty of the people. We therefore caution against a model of judicial independence that gradually elevates judiciary into insulated technocratic spheres. The report correctly identifies the incomplete nature of judicial independence project, particularly because lower courts remain under the control of the Department of Justice. The proposed phase 2 minister reforms must therefore be approached with caution and broad national consultation, particularly because they carry major financial, constitutional, and governance implications. The MK party is particularly concerned that the report celebrates institutional reform while ordinary South Africans continue to experience a justice system characterized by endless postponements, missing records, malfunctioning recording equipment, and severe court backlogs. Communities do not experience justice through policy frameworks. They experience justice through functioning courts. The continued failures in court recording technology remain a national embarrassment. Cases collapse, appeals are delayed, records disappear, victims wait for years, accused persons remain trapped in procedural limbo. The administration of justice cannot depend on obsolete systems and recurring technical failures. This report also confirms that court infrastructure remains in alarming condition. Courts continue to suffer from water disruptions, electricity failures, sanitation problems, and security vulnerabilities. These are not merely administrative inconveniences. They undermine the dignity, safety, and integrity of the justice system itself. We also remain deeply concerned about the slow pace of transformation within the judiciary and the broader legal system. Honorable Minister, transformation cannot be reduced to demographic arithmetic alone. It must also involve jurisprudential transformation. South Africa cannot continue to rely predominantly on Roman, Dutch, and English legal traditions. While African customary jurisprudence and indigenous legal philosophies remain marginalized, judicial education must therefore include a deliberate program of Afrocentric legal development and constitutional interpretation rooted in African realities, African history, and African concepts of justice. The development of common law must reflect the lived experiences of the majority of our people, not merely inherited colonial frameworks. The MK party notes the allocation of additional resources towards the land court. However, land justice cannot succeed merely through procedural reforms if the constitutional and legal architecture protecting historical land dispositions remain fundamentally intact. To fix this, the MK party bill on expropriation without compensation is in the committee's in tray. We further caution that digitization and court online systems, while necessary, must not deepen inequality in access to justice. Millions of people in South Africa still face digital exclusion, inadequate internet access, and financial barriers to legal participation. Modernization must therefore serve the people, not merely administrative convenience. The MK Party also believes that the crisis in the justice system cannot be isolated from the broader crisis of governance under the so-called GNU. A state that tolerates corruption, protects political elites, and manages decline through austerity inevitably weakens the public institutions, including the judiciary. South Africans continue to witness selective accountability. High-profile corruption matters drag on for years, while ordinary citizens face the full criminal justice system. In conclusion, this budget does not meet the objectives of the MK Party, and therefore we reject this budget.
Thank you, Honorable Mani. I would like to say that in between when you were debating, I felt like I was at a Soccer City Stadium watching Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs. The hoo, ha, ha. But that's what makes the debates more exciting. I would now recognize Honorable Klopper.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members. The Democratic Alliance recognizes the central role of the Office of the Chief Justice plays in safeguarding the independence of the judiciary and ensuring that justice is upheld in practice. The vote should not be seen as administrative. It is foundational to the functioning of our courts and to the constitutional promise that every South African has the right to access and justice. The vision of the Office of the Chief Justice is clear. It is to build a transformed and independent judicial system that guarantees access to justice for all. That vision is correct and necessary. However, the reality confronting many South Africans is that access to justice is becoming increasingly difficult, not because of a lack of a legal framework or a judicial will, but because the system that supports the courts are under strain. There is a growing gap between the constitutional vision of justice and the operational reality inside many of the courts. One of the most pressing issues is how funding is allocated within the OCJ. The OCJ's budget structure remains heavily weighted towards compensation, limiting flexibility to address infrastructure, security, and ICT needs. These are the functions that determine whether a court can open its doors, operate safely, and processes matter efficiently. If these functions are compromised, the entire system is compromised. Judicial independence cannot exist in a vacuum. It depends on an administrative system that works. And when that system begins to weaken, independence becomes theoretical rather than practical. Through oversight, it has become clear that many courts are already experiencing strain at the most basic level. There are concerns about safety and security, and with the office itself acknowledging risks to physical security of courts and the judiciary, and the need to strengthen both personnel and electronic security systems. This isn't a distant hypothetical concern. A court must be a place of order, safety, and dignity. Where those conditions are consistently met, public confidence is undermined. Equally concerning are the day-to-day operational challenges that continue to surface. Delays in maintenance, inconsistent procurement of essential items, and shortcomings in basic infrastructure may appear minor in isolation, but collectively they point to a system that is under pressure. There are instances where even routine requirements, such as cleaning equipment, are not consistently delivered on time. And this speaks not to policy failure, but to administrators and operational weaknesses. And in a court environment, these weaknesses have direct consequences on service delivery. The transition to judiciary-led administration model adds another layer of complexity. The transfer of shared services from departments of justice to the Office of the Chief of Justice is a significant structural reform that involves functions such as facility management, security services, and ICT support. In principle, this is a step in the right direction. The Democratic Alliance supports the efforts to strengthen the institutional independence of the judiciary. However, independence must be supported by capacity and resources. If the transition is poorly managed, it risks placing additional strain on an already constrained institution. This is where the concern lies. Structural reform without proper management of resources does not strengthen institution, it exposes their vulnerabilities. Technology and modernization are often presented as solutions to many of the challenges facing the justice system. The Office of the Chief Justice has correctly identified ICT as a strategic driver of efficiency and improved access to justice. Initiatives such as Court Online and improvements of court recording systems are improvements and are important steps forward. However, technology cannot compensate for weak foundations. A digital system is only effective if underlying infrastructure is stable, if connectivity is reliable, and the necessary support systems are indeed in place. This debate is about whether the budget will be wisely spent by the OCJ to transform the constitutional promises of access to justice into a lived reality. It is about whether a person who enters a courtroom can expect a safe environment, a functioning system, and processes that respect their time and dignity. It is about whether justice is delivered consistently and not only occasionally. The Democratic Alliance believes that access to justice must be protected and strengthened. That requires more than just policy alignment. It requires sustained investment into a system's fundamentals, safe and secure court environments, properly maintained infrastructure, reliable administrative systems, and adequately resourced support services are definitely not optional. They are essential. We support the judiciary and the constitutional principles it upholds, but we expect that the issues raised, particularly those relating to expenditure control, operational capacity, and the implementation of structural reforms, must be addressed with urgency and honesty. South Africans do experience justice through policy documents. They experience it in courtrooms. And those courtrooms must work consistently, safely, and with dignity. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I will now recognize Honorable Mutlala.
Chairperson, I will not be able to switch my video because my network is too bad. Thanks so much, House Chair. The Economic Freedom Fighters rises on vote 27 of the Office of the Chief Justice to confront a hard truth. South Africa's justice system is under structural strain, weakened by underfunding, institutional overload, and a growing gap between constitutional promise and lived reality. We cannot separate the judiciary from the broader question of accountability in this country. The Phala matter involving President Cyril Ramaphosa exposed a deeper constitutional weakness, whether accountability in South Africa is equal or whether it can be delayed and managed when it reached those in power. The Section 89 independent panel, chaired by former Chief Justice Sandile Ngcobo, made serious prima facie findings that required urgent parliamentary action. Yet, instead of decisive accountability, Parliament responded with delay, procedural avoidance, and political shielding. This sent a dangerous message that accountability at the highest level can be postponed until public pressure fades. House Chair, when accountability weakens at the top, every institution below feels the impact. It creates a culture where consequences are not immediate and where constitutional responsibility become negotiable. It is within this environment that vote 27 must be assessed. The judiciary is operating under severe structural pressure. Courts are overwhelmed with increasing caseloads. While judicial support system has not expanded at the same pace, judges are required to manage complex matters without sufficient research assistance or adequate administrative support. Court registries remain understaffed and overburdened, leading to delays in filing, scheduling, and tracking cases. Case backlogs are not reducing. In many instances, they are growing. This means justice is not only delayed, but accumulating delay over time. Reserved judgments are taking longer than reasonable time frames, creating uncertainty and weakening trust in judicial timelines. This problem is especially severe in the Labour Court of South Africa, where judgment often takes so long that employers with resources remain protected while workers suffer. When labor judgments are delayed, elites continue business as usual, while dismissed and exploited workers wait endlessly without income, dignity, or certainty. Justice delay in labor matters is not neutral. It is systematically punishes the poor and shields powerful employers. House Chair, this is not a failure of judicial competence. It is a failure of institutional capacity. The root cause lies in austerity budgeting under Vote 27, which has weakened the operational foundation of the judiciary. Courts are expected to function as modern constitutional institutions while being funded and supported as if they operate under outdated conditions. Digital transformation remains slow and uneven. Many courts still rely on manual systems that are inefficient and fragmented. Case management systems are not fully integrated, making it difficult to track progress and improve efficiency. Judicial staff, support staff, including clerks, researchers, and administrative officers, are not sufficient for the work overload they carry. This forces judges to deal with administrative burdens that should have handled by properly resourced support system. Infrastructure inequality between courts further deepens inefficiency, especially in under-resourced areas. This creates uneven access to justice in practice, even if equality exists in law. House Chair, the reality is simple. A court without proper administrative and technological support does not speed up justice, it slows it down. And when justice is delayed, trust in the system weakens. Citizens begin to see justice as uncertain, dependent not only on law, but on capacity and circumstance. We acknowledge and formally recognize the leadership of Chief Justice Maya, not only for acknowledging delays in reserved by judgment, but for acting in a manner that preserves public confidence in the judiciary at the moment of serious institutional pressure. The EFF accepts her apology because it was made openly, honestly, and in full recognition of the constitutional duty owed to the people of South Africa. In a country where political leaders commit serious wrongdoing and then attempt to fool the nation, hide behind majorities, and escape accountability, this conduct by the Chief Justice reaffirms that the judiciary remain anchored in integrity, ethical leadership, and respect for the rule of law. House Chair, this justice crisis reflects a broader pattern in the state. There's a delayed accountability at the political level, combined with austerity at the institutional level. The result is a chain reaction, delayed accountability at top, weakened capacity in the middle, and delayed justice for ordinary people at the bottom. House Chair, the EFF therefore demands urgent intervention. We call for increased and protected funding for court administration to strengthen institutional capacity. We demand accelerated digital transformation of all court processes to eliminate outdated manual system. We call for expanded judicial support staff to relieve pressure on judges and improve efficiency. We further demand a national backlog reduction program with clear targets and accountability mechanism. We also call for enforceable timelines for reserved judgment in constitutional and high-impact matters to restore certainty and trust. House Chair, a democracy cannot survive when judges exist in principle but arrive too late in practice. The EFF will defend the judicial independence without compromise, but will equally confront austerity, inefficiency, and institutional neglect that weaken the delivery of justice to the people. The EFF rejects this report. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Musala. We'll now recognize Honorable Ngwango. Honorable Ngwango, please switch on your mic.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, and honorable colleagues. A constitutional democracy can only survive where the rule of law is protected by strong, independent, and credible institutions. The Inkatha Freedom Party has always maintained that the judiciary remains one of the most important safeguards against the abuse of power, corruption, and erosion of constitutional rights. It is for this reason that the Office of the Chief Justice continues to play a critical role in strengthening democracy and safeguarding constitutional supremacy in South Africa. The IFP welcomes the continued support of the judiciary within the constrained fiscal environment facing the country. The committee report notes that the government has allocated an additional 687 million over the medium term for the judiciary, and shifted a further 883.8 million from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development to the Office of the Chief Justice to strengthen judicial capacity and support the transition towards a judiciary-led court administration model. We support the transition because the independence of the judiciary cannot merely exist in principle. It must also exist administratively and institutionally. A judiciary that remains dependent on another department for operational functions risk weakening public confidence in the separation of powers. Honorable Chairperson, we further welcome the focus on court modernization and digital transformation. The committee report highlights the importance of implementing integrated justice system components, upgrading ICT infrastructure, and expanding e-service access to the justice system. These reforms are essential if South Africa is to reduce delays and improve case flow management and ensure the justice becomes more accessible and efficient. However, while these commitments are commendable, the reality confronting ordinary South Africans remains deeply concerning. The report itself acknowledges that the justice sector continues to operate under limited real growth with constrained spending affecting infrastructure, ICT upgrades, administrative efficiency, and court modernization. We are particularly concerned that compensation of employees consumes approximately 62% of the broader justice allocation, leaving limited flexibility for infrastructure investment and modernization. This explains why many courts across the country, particularly in rural areas, continue to suffer from inadequate facilities, overcrowding, unreliable technology, and poor maintenance. Access to justice should never depend on geography. Rural communities deserve functional and dignified courts just as much as urban centers do. Furthermore, we equally share the concerns regarding instability in senior management and ICT leadership positions, including prolonged acting appointments and vacancies in key posts. We believe that stable leadership and administrative accountability are critical if the Office of the Chief Justice is to effectively drive reform and modernization within the judiciary. In conclusion, the IFP reiterates its support for strengthening the institutional independence of the Office of the Chief Justice, while calling for accelerated court modernization, improved infrastructure, stronger cybersecurity capacity, and urgent filling of critical vacancies across the justice system. The IFP accepts this.
Thank you. I will now recognize Honorable Hendricks.
Honorable Shalom, honorable members, the Patriotic Alliance rise today to debate Vote 27, Office of the Chief Justice, a vote that speaks directly to the integrity of our justice system. The Office of the Chief Justice is entrusted with safeguarding the rule of law, yet persistent failure in prosecutions continue to undermine public confidence in our courts. The backlog of cases and weak prosecutorial follow-through have left victims without justice. Delayed prosecution means that offenders walk free while communities lose faith in the system meant to protect them. Justice delayed is justice denied. Corruption cases highlights the cracks in our prosecutorial machinery. High-profile prosecutions often collapse due to poor preparation, lack of evidence management, or procedural failures. This erodes trust and emboldens those who exploit loopholes in the system. The lack of accountability within the prosecutorial arm undermines the very purpose of the office of the Chief Justice. Institutional failures weaken constitutional democracy, leaving ordinary South Africans vulnerable to crime, corruption, and abuse of power. Honorable Chair, Vote 27 must not only fund the courts, it must ensure that prosecution are effective, timely, and credible. Without strong prosecution, the judiciary cannot deliver justice, and the Constitution becomes a paper promise rather than a living guarantee. Let us commit to strengthening prosecutorial capacity, enforcing accountability, and restoring faith in the justice system. For without justice, there can be no democracy. A justice system that fails in prosecution fails its people. Vote 27 must restore accountability and credibility to our courts. Chair, let me also take this opportunity to congratulate the young man from Reiger Park whose soccer career was prematurely ended. Yesterday, he played the same team that ended his career, Bennett Parker, and we all saw the result. So to Bennett Parker, congratulations, and to Amapagania, seksele kangana.
Honorable members are leaving this thing of Soccer City. Honorable vessels.
Honorable Hendricks is causing divisions in this house, House Chair.
No, I can see, I can tell.
Thank you, Honourable House Chairperson. House Chair, as we commemorate 30 years since the enactment of our Constitution, we should reflect upon the fact that the constitutionally guaranteed right to access to justice for all remains a distant dream for the majority of South Africans due to the practical failures on grassroots level, including the fact that a lot of our court buildings are collapsing and decaying, security in our courts are non-existent, and obviously as well the fact that there is a significant backlog with regards to court cases. And that includes our superior courts. Chairperson, we have to address those shortcomings to actually give and realize the constitutional right to access to justice for all. The majority of South Africans also experience high legal costs as the barrier to access to especially our superior courts. We cannot allow that and say that we are a constitutional democracy with those guaranteed rights if those realities persist. The other factor is the fact that in our Constitution, we have the enshrined value of the separation of powers, and the independence of the judiciary is a significant part thereof. And whilst it is welcomed that we are transforming and moving more towards a judiciary-led court administration, it is still not enough. Whilst the courts and the judiciary are dependent on public works for its infrastructure, meaning the executive, whilst the judiciary is dependent on the executive authority which is seated in the executive arm of the state, it is not true separation of power. But the Honourable Mani very easily says that there should be financial autonomy. But what does that entail? And we should have a debate about that. What does financial autonomy of the judiciary really entail? Where does the money come from? It must come from somewhere. It must come from the National Revenue Fund, and someone must say what that amount of money is. So if we talk about financial autonomy, We need a real principled decision of how does that model actually look? How does a true separation of power model really look? Is there and can there actually ever be true, absolute separation of power? And a lot of academics will tell you, no, it's not possible. There will always be a certain sense of encroachment between the trias politica. But what we do need to debate is if there is a need for a proper judicial council which determines the budget allocations of a specific allocated budget amount from the National Revenue Fund. That is something that can be discussed. Furthermore, Chairperson, when we talk about the modernization of our case management, such steps should not delay and further delay our case management, as there is currently a disconnect between case line and court online and our uniform court rules. That should be addressed to actually give effect to modernization, which does serve access to justice. I thank you.
The next speaker is Honorable Trollip.
Thank you very much, House Chair. One normally comes to meetings like this or debates thinking that most people have read the report. But for those of you who didn't read the report, don't worry, Jimmy. Honorable Manye read it to you in his speech. The Office of the Chief Justice's core function is to provide administrative, technical support to the judiciary to make sure that it is effective. The budget barely meets that mandate. The transfer of retained and shared services from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development is a significant milestone towards the increased independence of this office. But this is undermined by a significant budget shortfall of 57 million rand, which makes it essentially an unfunded mandate. The challenges that were raised universally yesterday in the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development debate remain apposite here. And the minimal increase, or in real terms, decrease in budget to the peace and security sector directly affects the Office of the Chief Justice as well. This reinforces the concern that the Office of the Chief Justice mandate has increased considerably without the commensurate budgetary allocation, which essentially undermines the endeavor to expand judicial independence. Digitizing court processes is key to unblocking the judicial bottlenecks that delay justice and needs much more attention, and adequate funding needs to be allocated to this function if we are to address the lived realities caused by delayed justice in South Africa. As long as all the courts do not fall under the authority of the Office of the Chief Justice, our legal system will remain a quasi-independent judiciary, especially as the lower courts still remain under the authority of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. This is antithetical with the provisions of the Constitution. Justice should be led by the Chief Justice, not a political principle. Ongoing judicial training is commendable and indeed a great need that is rolled out through 130 available courses. My experience on the JSC is that the jurists who've been exposed to these training courses benefit tremendously, which serves justice well and in its dispensation and in the receipt of justice. This program must continue to receive the required support. The proper funding of our courts needs to be better attended to. The functioning of our courts, I beg your pardon. From broken water and electricity infrastructure, building dysfunction, out-of-order lifts, not an inadequate storage facility, leaking roofs, broken toilets, etc. These all demean the quality of justice being dispensed, which impacts practitioners and administrators alike. Lack of proper security has led to murders and assassinations in and around our courts, which is totally untenable and must be immediately addressed. The murder of attorney Shanette Gallican was the last straw and must be the last incident of this kind. Sexual harassment in the judiciary has clearly been a major problem, and the new anti-sexual harassment policy has been widely well received and welcomed. However, there continue to be high-profile cases of this scourge that beg a belief and they are compounded by confounding findings and judgments. In this regard, we commend the JSC under the leadership of the Chief Justice for their stance on the most recent matter between a judge president of a provincial division and one of his support staff. Justice must be seen to be done, especially in cases of sexual harassment and gender-based violence. Action SA remains concerned by the underfunding of this important vote, but we are supporting its APP and its budget. I want to conclude by saying I'm perturbed at the turnout of the ANC in this debate. 4 of you. We only got 6 members in my party. 2 are participating in the other debate. 1 is away on party business, laying charges against the president in Limpopo, in the jurisdiction of Palapala, and the other one is preparing to ask questions to the president about Minister Tolashe, who expropriated 2 cars without compensation and overtaxed her support staff.
Honorable,
You send 4 people
We are
to...
here.
Honorable
We are
Trollip,
here
your
in this
time has
debate.
expired.
We are here.
The next order, please. Order, please. The next speaker is the Honorable Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. Honorable Deputy Minister.
Chairperson, honorable members, I join in the greetings extended by the Minister. Opening the Constitutional Court on 14 February 1995, President Nelson Mandela said, "Today I rise not as an accused, but on behalf of the people of South Africa to inaugurate a court South Africa has never had, a court on which hinges the future of our country." He added that our Constitution rests on 3 pillars: Parliament, the government, and the Constitutional Court. Each has its specific role to play. Take away or undermine any, and you weaken the whole structure. That is why your independence is guaranteed in the Constitution. Speaking 30 years later at the anniversary of the establishment of the Constitutional Court on the 20th of June, 2025, President Ramaphosa recommitted that we will ensure the judiciary is rightly constituted as an equal branch of government with the legislature and the executive. The establishment of the Office of the Chief Justice as a government department in 2010 by President Jacob Zuma was a stepping stone towards full institutional independence of the judiciary, in line with item 16.6 of Schedule 6 to the Constitution, which mandates the Minister of Justice, acting after consultation with the Judicial Service Commission, to ensure that all courts, including their structure, composition, functioning, and jurisdiction and relevant legislation, must be rationalized with a view to establishing a judicial system suited to the requirements of the new Constitution. The transfer of functions and budgets from the Department of Justice to the OCJ is proceeding on target. Consistent with the constitutional responsibility of the executive to develop and implement national policy and to prepare and initiate legislation, the department is drafting a legislative framework for a single judiciary and a judiciary-led court administration. The Reverend Martin Luther King said that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Similarly, the independence of the judiciary is indivisible. Indeed, as President Mandela said, the success of the Constitutional Court will depend in large measure on the successful functioning of the ordinary courts. Every court, from the most isolated magistrates' court to the appeal court in Bloemfontein, has a role to play. The letter and the spirit of the Constitution must permeate every aspect of justice in our country. Therefore, at the request of the Minister of Justice, I facilitated an engagement with the Regional Court Presidents Forum and the Chief Magistrates Forum to ensure that this important layer of the judiciary participates actively in the process of defining the form and content of a judiciary-led court administration model. We express our deep appreciation to Chief Justice Maya for inviting representatives of the regional and the district court judiciary to the last heads of court meeting where these matters were discussed. In light of these developments, the introduction of the Magistrates Bill and the Lower Courts Bill will be held in abeyance and aligned with these processes. The transformation of the judiciary over the past 30 years has been profound. In the words of President Mandela, we can say, when we look at you, we see for the first time the many dimensions of our rich and varied country. We see a multiplicity of backgrounds and life experiences. In 2013, the magistracy was 60% Black and 39% female. By 2026, the magistracy is 78% Black and 55% female. The transformation of the judiciary has involved both its composition as well as its values. The South African Judicial Education Institute has played a vital role in this transformation. During the past financial year, it has offered an impressive 136 training courses to current and aspirant judicial officers. These courses cover social context, case management, use of technology and AI, as well as the adjudication and sentencing of offenses involving sexual crimes, cyber violence, and online sexual exploitation, trafficking in persons, the Immigration Act, and essential infrastructure, to name but a few. Importantly, it will conduct compulsory training for the entire judiciary on the judicial sexual harassment policy. We await the report of the Committee on the Lower Courts Judicial Establishments, chaired by Judge Makamu. This will enable the Magistrates Commission to make recommendations to the Minister regarding the creation, transfer, and abolition of certain judicial offices. We commend the Magistrates Commission for the expeditious way it has filled vacant posts in the magistracy. 52 posts of senior magistrates and 68 posts of regional court presidents were filled in the past financial year. Interviews for 198 entry-level magistrates will be held soon. The Commission is proactively advertising soon-to-be vacant posts of regional court presidents and chief magistrates. We were all concerned to see magistrates protesting about remunerations and conditions of employment. The Remuneration and Conditions of Service Committee of the Magistrates Commission is looking into these concerns. Correctly, Parliament has raised concern regarding the protracted time taken to finalize misconduct proceedings against certain magistrates, often at great expense to the taxpayer. The Magistrates Commission has committed itself to expedite outstanding disciplinary hearings. Our courts must be places where all are safe and feel safe. I have visited the Boysons, Athlone, and Mitchell's Plain magistrates' courts after shooting incidents. Together with the judiciary, we have engaged Acting Minister of Police to ensure greater visible policing around our courts. Chairperson, I conclude with the words of President Nelson Mandela, the lawyer and freedom fighter. People come and go, customs, fashions, and preferences change, yet the web of fundamental rights and justice which a nation proclaims must not be broken. We expect you to stand on guard not only against direct assault on the principles of the Constitution, but against insidious corrosion. Attacks on the basic rights of people are invariably couched in innocent language. These rights, he said, took root in the soil of our own harsh experiences. They grew upwards towards the light of our own highest aspirations. We must defend them, all of us. This year, we celebrate the 30th anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution under the theme, One Constitution, One Nation, Reflect, Renew, Recommit. And therefore, as a sign of recommitment, I would like to conclude by reciting the preamble to the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, and would be very happy if any honorable member joins me. I am told it is not my duty to instruct the members to rise, but those who wish to are more than welcome.
Honorable Deputy Minister, can you just take your seat? Thank you. I just want to handle this request on, there is no rule that does not allow the minister to do so, as long as it happens in an orderly way. So you may proceed.
Thank you. We call for this to become a standard practice in our country, including in Parliament. We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of our past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land,
Order. Order, please.
respect those who
Honorable
have worked.
Deputy Minister, can you please take your seat? Order, please, members. Honorable Trollip, your point of order. Can you please, honorable members, can you please take your seats? Honorable Trollip, your point of order.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I saw the Honorable Deputy Minister do this yesterday. If he and his party have forgotten what that constitution says and what their oath was that they swore when they were elected to the 7th administration, maybe they must read it more often. We remember it well. Thank you.
You please,
Respect.
Deputy Minister, will you please take your seat? Honorable Paulson, your point of order.
Would the Honorable Deputy Minister take a question?
Minister, will you take a question? No, he's not prepared to take a question. Your point of order?
Chair, House Chair, thank you. Also, we implore you to remind members that they should not drown the speaker.
Yes.
As they are. You say they are drowning me now when I'm addressing you.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you.
Honorable members, please. Honorable members. Honorable members, although I gave permission to the Deputy Minister to do this, because there's no rule not allowing that, the request was that it will be done in an orderly fashion. An orderly fashion doesn't mean that half of the House is trying to drown out the other half of the House. If we can only continue with that, Deputy Minister, if that will not happen again. Otherwise, I cannot allow it. Honorable member, your point of Deputy Minister, will you just please take your seat? Your point of order, honorable member.
Chair, I think a matter like this is a matter that is serious, not only to the members of parliament, but to the nation. And it would become untidy when it is done through choice, because it might imply that those of us that are sitting do not respect the Constitution. I think a matter of this grave nature should be sent to the Rules Committee so that we can comply all as members of parliament.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to take any more points of order on this point. I would like us to refer this to the Rules Committee to see, because there is a lacuna in the rules. There's nothing that does not allow it. But as I already ruled, it must be done in an orderly way. It has not been done in an orderly way until now. The Deputy Minister, you may continue. If it disrupts in disorder again, I would request you not to continue. Thank you.
Chairperson, Chairperson, I respect your ruling absolutely, and I am actually very glad that the matter would be referred to the Rules Committee for proper consideration. I will then continue as part of my speech to recite the preamble. Honor those who have suffered for justice and freedom in our land. Respect those who have worked to build and develop our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. We therefore, through our freely elected representatives, adopt this Constitution as the supreme law of the Republic, so as to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. Lay the foundations for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is equally protected by law. Improve the quality of life of all citizens and free the potential of each person, and build a united and democratic South Africa able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the family of nations.
Honorable Minister, can you just please take your seat? The honorable member on the virtual platform that raised your hand, what is your point of order?
Chair, it was Member Dugmore, but my point of order has been resolved in terms of your ruling and the Deputy Minister's response to your ruling. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
May God protect our people. Nkosi sekelele Africa. Morena buluka sechaba sa Jesu. Hotsi in South Africa. God bless South Africa. Mudzimu fatuchedza Africa. Hosi katekisa Africa. I thank you.
Honorable members, that concludes the debate and the business of the mini-plenary session.
That can be correct, Chair. I must respond. My 5 minutes, Chair.
No, that, honorable members, that does not conclude the debate. The next speaker. Members, order please. Order please. Order please. Can we have order and continue with the debate? Honorable Matafa.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Good afternoon, Chair and members. The African National Congress supports Budget Vote 27 because the annual performance plan of the Office of the Chief Justice responds directly to one of the central demands of our people: a justice system that works effectively, efficiently, fairly, and without unnecessary delay. The ANC has consistently argued that access to justice is not achieved merely through constitutional guarantees. It must also be reflected in the lived experiences of citizens interacting with the courts. The APP before us demonstrates a clear understanding of this responsibility. Members, the APP focuses on improved court efficiency. Is particularly important within the context of the 2026 SONA address, which called for a capable state that delivers service with speed, professionalism, and integrity. The targets contained in Program 2 are practical indicators that speak directly to service delivery in the Superior Court. The targets that 91% of default judgments must be finalized within 12 court days, together with the targets for taxation and warrants of liberation, demonstrates measurable commitments to reducing delays in our court processes. These are not abstract administrative indicators. They affect real people, workers awaiting justice, business requiring legal certainty, accused persons awaiting release, and families seeking closure. The ANC further welcomes the production of the Judicial Case Flow Management reports as an important mechanism for monitoring bottlenecks and ensuring accountability in court performance. The APP also demonstrates responsiveness to the realities facing justice system in the digital era. The continued rollout of Court Online and the development of the criminal module are significant reforms that will improve efficiency, reduce paper-based delays, and strengthen case management systems. The ANC particularly welcomes the allocation of CARA funding towards digitization of court files, court recording technology, and ICT infrastructure upgrades. This investment supports the broader government objective of building a modern development state capable of integrating technology into frontline services. I beg your pardon. However, Chairperson, the ANC also emphasizes that digital transformation must enhance rather than replace accessibility. The APP appropriately balances digital innovation with continued physical court functionality, including targets to ensure uninterrupted court operations during water and electricity disruptions. This is especially important in rural and underdeveloped communities where inequalities in digital access remain a reality. Honorable members, the ANC also notes positively the APP's attention to judicial support services. The availability of virtual library services at 99% availability levels strengthens the research capacity of the judiciary and contributes to quality jurisprudence and informed judicial decision-making. Similarly, the security initiative reflected in the APP
are necessary given the increasing complexity of organized crime, corruption-related matters, and high-profile litigation before our courts. The judiciary cannot function effectively in an environment where judges, court officials, and court users feel unsafe. The approval of the OCJ security strategy and the implementation of related security measures therefore deserve our support. Chairperson, the ANC also appreciates the transparency with which the Office of the Chief Justice had outlined risks and mitigating strategies. Rather than concealing institutional pressures, the APP openly identifies risks relating to ICT capacity, financial sustainability, and service disruption while presenting concrete mitigation plans. This reflects a culture of accountability and honest governance, which the ANC believes is essential for building public confidence in state institutions. The ANC further recognizes that fiscal discipline is not simply about cutting expenditure. It is about ensuring that every rand spent contributes meaningfully to service delivery outcomes. In this regard, the APP demonstrates a conscious effort to align expenditure with measurable performance outputs. Honorable members, the judiciary remains one of the foundational pillars of our constitutional democracy. The ANC therefore supports continued investment in our judiciary that is independent, technologically modern, professionally supported, and responsible for the needs of society. For this reason, the ANC supports Budget Vote 27 and the 2026-2027 APP of the Office of the Chief Justice. Honorable Troy, just to respond to you, the full component of the study group of the ANC is here. Honorable Motaung participated in the discussion. Honorable Tsotesi, as we espouse and encourage education in the ANC, is busy with examinations and is being duly granted leave to be absent from this hearing. Therefore, we are fully represented. And again, we want to reiterate that we support Budget Vote 27. And the objection of us standing and reciting the preamble of the Constitution shows, Honorable Speaker, that members are not following the discussion because you had ruled, you have given permission, starting with pirates. Let me excuse myself. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
The next speaker is Honorable Swart.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, the ACDP is deeply concerned about the crisis facing the judiciary, and this as a result of the critical shortage of judges and their ever-increasing workload. In the Pretoria and Johannesburg High Courts, more than 120,000 new cases are issued every year. This to be dealt with by 80 or less judges. And this excludes the backlog, which can run to hundreds of thousands of cases awaiting trial dates. The OCJ previously indicated that certain high courts were issuing civil trial dates far ahead in 2031. That's 5 years in 5 years' time. This is totally unacceptable, as Section 34 of the Constitution guarantees the right to access to the courts. Where this is denied or delayed, it contributes to lawlessness, where people may feel they can breach contracts, incur debts that won't be recovered, or engage in unlawful activities without fear of immediate consequences. Justice delayed is justice denied. The ACDP is therefore heartened that the Minister has announced plans for the implementation of parts of the Messoneki report to appoint up to 50 new judges. They will clearly also need capacity, additional courts, and support, and this the ACDP supports. We as Parliament must ensure that the judiciary, the third arm of the state, is sufficiently resourced to provide speedy justice to the needy. The ACDP also welcomes the implementation of the long-awaited judicially-led court administration model. This will be transferred administrative functions from the department to the OCJ. This has taken a long time, but we are pleased that substantial progress is now being made. Lastly, the ACDP commends the Constitutional Court for its seminal judgment delivered last week, where it found that Parliament had acted unlawfully in blocking the impeachment inquiry into President Ramaphosa, that relating to the Phala Phala matter. The ACDP was one of the many parties who believed that that report should be referred to an impeachment inquiry. This is now set to happen and illustrates the resilience of our constitutional democracy based on the separation of powers. I thank you.
Honourable member, my apology, I didn't see your hand in time. What was your point of order?
Thank you, Chair. Although the speaker have already done with his speech, but I was checking that is it parliamentary that Honorable Trolik is debating while he is in the bathroom. Honorable Swart, sorry. Honorable Swart.
Honourable,
I'm not in the bathroom. I have
Honourable
no
member.
power, so I have a candle.
Honourable member, it is not against the rule to debate on anything in a mini budget plenary, even if it's a budget vote.
The toilet, Chair.
Order, please. Is there a speaker for the UDM? For Rise, Mzansi? Bosa? ATM? Al-Jamaa?
Honorable Chairperson,
Yes.
fellow beloved South Africans,
Honourable
Honorable,
Musa, you can speak.
thank you. Fellow beloved South Africans, esteemed honorable members in the House, in the name of Almighty, the most gracious and the most merciful, I greet in the name and prayer of peace, justice and truth. Al-Jamaa notes and supports vote number 27 for the office of the Chief Justice. An independent, effective and accessible judiciary remains one of the most important pillars of our constitutional democracy. The office of the Chief Justice plays a critical role in upholding the rule of law, protecting human rights, and ensuring equal justice for all citizens. However, many South Africans continue to experience delays in court processes, case backlogs, and limited access to justice due to financial and systemic challenges. We therefore call for greater efficiency within the courts, improved support for judicial officers, and stronger measures to combat corruption and maladministration within the justice system. Al-Jamaa further emphasizes that justice delayed is justice denied, and the judiciary must remain independent, transparent, and free from political interference. The people of South Africa deserve a justice system that protects dignity, fairness, and accountability for all. We further call for the strengthening of community-based legal support services so that the vulnerable and disadvantaged communities are not excluded from accessing justice because of poverty or lack of resources. The courts must inspire confidence amongst our people and remain a refuge for the oppressed, the marginalized, and those seeking fairness under the Constitution. As leaders, we have a collective responsibility to ensure that institutions of justice are protected, respected, and properly resourced in order to preserve the integrity of our democracy for future generations. Al-Jamaa supports all efforts aimed at building a justice system that is compassionate, efficient, and firmly rooted in constitutional values and human dignity. Al-Jamaa believes in the following principal slogans: protect the independence of our judiciary, protect our religious freedom, equal justice for all South Africans. A strong judiciary builds a strong democracy. Courts must serve the people with dignity and fairness. Defend the rule of law, accessible justice for every community, no political interference in the judiciary, integrity, accountability, and justice for all. An independent judiciary is the guardian of freedom. Justice must be fair, fast, and accessible. Restore public confidence in our courts. Human rights and justice go hand in hand. Fight corruption, fight justice. In the name of truth and justice, I thank you. Malibongwe.
Is there any speaker for the NCC? Any speaker for the PIC? UAT? Good. The next speaker is Honorable Engelbrecht.
Madam Chair, as we debate the APP and budget vote of the Office of the Chief Justice, we must bear in mind that the Office of the Chief Justice is not merely another department within the Department of Justice. It exists to safeguard one of the most important principles upon which our democracy is founded, the independence of the judiciary and the supremacy of the Constitution. As institutions across the state battle corruption, political pressure, inefficiency, and declining public trust, the courts remain one of the last lines of defense, the South Africans seeking justice and constitutional protection. The reality is the enormous responsibility on the Office of the Chief Justice. The judiciary has repeatedly demonstrated its resilience and integrity under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. Our courts have defended constitutional rights, protected democratic accountability, and as recent as this past Friday, reaffirmed the principle that no person, regardless of political office or influence, is above the law. Support for judicial independence cannot simply be rhetorical. It must be reflected in adequate resources, effective administration, and institutional protection. Judicial independence means very little if courts are crippled by administrative dysfunction, insufficient funding, staff shortages, outdated systems, and deteriorating infrastructure. This debate therefore requires us to ask the fundamental question: is the Office of the Chief Justice adequately equipped to fulfill its constitutional mandate? Positive aspects within the annual performance plan that deserve acknowledgement are the continued efforts to modernize the courts through digital case management systems and virtual platforms, the commitment to reducing case backlogs, improving court efficiency, and strengthening judicial support services. Also important are measures aimed at improving access to justice, particularly for the vulnerable communities who often face enormous barriers in accessing the courts. However, it is impossible to ignore serious challenges that continue to undermine the effectiveness of the judiciary. One of the most pressing concerns remains the persistent backlog of cases across various divisions of our courts. Delayed justice has devastating consequences. Victims wait years for closure. Civil disputes drag on endlessly. Businesses face uncertainty. Families remain trapped in unresolved legal battles. Justice delayed is justice denied, not only for accused persons, but for every citizen who depends on the courts for protection and certainty. The cause of these delays are well documented: insufficient judicial officers in some divisions, inefficient court administration, technical failures disrupt proceedings, vacancies amongst support staff unfilled for extended periods. These are not minor operational inconveniences. They are obstacles that directly affect the constitutional rights of South Africans to access justice. From the most remote villages to the biggest cities in our country, not a single South African has not in some way been impacted by crime. We have to ask ourselves whether the courts are adequately equipped to hold criminals accountable. Crime impacts everyone, and we must ensure that the Office of the Chief Justice is well resourced enough to provide real justice for all South Africans. Judges increasingly preside over highly politicized and complex matters under intense public scrutiny and, at times, direct intimidation. The independence and safety of judicial officers must therefore remain a national priority. Recent years have shown how dangerous reckless attacks on the judiciary can be. Criticism of judgment is legitimate in a constitutional democracy, but deliberate efforts to undermine public confidence in the courts through baseless accusations against judges threaten the very foundation of the rule of law. When political leaders attack judges simply because they dislike the outcomes of cases, they weaken constitutional democracy itself. The Office of the Chief Justice, therefore, has an important institutional role, not only in court administration, but in protecting the integrity, credibility, and independence of the judiciary. Technological reform must be accompanied by proper training, cybersecurity safeguards, and enable access, equitable access, digital systems that work only in major urban centers while rural communities remain excluded will merely deepen inequality in access to justice. Ultimately, South Africa expects a judiciary that is independent, efficient, accessible, and worthy of public trust. They expect courts to function properly, judgments delivered without undue delay, and a justice system capable of protecting constitutional rights without fear or favor. This budget vote gives Parliament the opportunity to reaffirm our collective commitment to judicial independence and the rule of law. But the commitment must extend beyond words. It must be reflected in meaningful support, proper oversight, and a determination to ensure that the Office of the Chief Justice is empowered to carry out its constitutional mandate effectively. The strength of any democracy is measured by the strength and independence of its institutions. Few institutions are more important in that regard than the judiciary. We must therefore ensure that the Office of the Chief Justice is equipped not merely to survive, but to uphold and defend the constitutional democracy upon which all South Africans depend. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Honorable Ngola.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Greetings to the Minister, the Deputy Minister, members of the Portfolio Committee, both inside and in the platform, and all honorable members. The ANC rises firmly in support of Budget Vote 27 and the 2026-2027 Annual Performance Plan of the Office of the Chief Justice. The ANC approaches this debate from a clear understanding that the strength of our constitutional democracy depends on the strength, credibility, and accessibility of the judiciary. The capable judiciary is not separate from the developmental objectives of the democratic state. It is central to them. The APP before us demonstrate alignment with the National Development Plan, the Medium-Term Development Plan, the 2026 State of the Nation Address, and the fiscal framework adopted by this Parliament. More importantly, it reflects a practical program to build a capable, ethical, and developmental state as envisaged by the ANC. The ANC welcomes the vision articulated by the Office of the Chief Justice of a single, transformed, and independent judicial system that guarantees access to justice for all. This vision resonates deeply with the historic mission of the ANC to transform state institutions so that they serve all South Africans equally and fairly. The APP correctly positions judicial support not as a peripheral administrative function, but as a strategic pillar within the justice and security cluster. The strengthening of administrative support, judicial education, court efficiency, and technological modernization all contribute towards a justice system capable of responding to the contemporary challenges confronting our society, including corruption, organized crime, gender-based violence, and complex commercial disputes. One of the most significant developments reflected in this APP is the continued implementation of judicial institutional independence. The completion of phase 1 of the institutional independence project represents a major democratic achievement. Shared services relating to ICT facilities management, recording technology, virtual library services, and security support are now being administered directly by the Office of the Chief Justice. This development strengthens the autonomy and operational capability of the judiciary while preserving constitutional accountability. The ANC support this evolution because judicial independence must not exist only in principle. It must also exist in operational reality. However, independence also demands accountability, efficiency, and prudent financial management. The ANC therefore welcomes the APP's strong emphasis on the measurable performance indicators and governance reforms. The commitment to achieving clean audit outcomes, maintaining strict financial disclosure compliance, investigating fraud allegations within defined timeframes, and ensuring procurement integrity reflects responsiveness to the findings and concerns often raised by the Auditor General of South Africa. This is important because public confidence in the judiciary depends not only in the judicial decisions, but also on the public confidence in the integrity of the institutions supporting the courts. The ANC welcomes the APP's strategic focus on innovation and digital transformation. The continued rollout of the court online, the development of the criminal module, and the investment in the digitization of courts records represent critical interventions aimed at improving court efficiency and reducing delays. The judiciary cannot remain dependent on outdated manual systems while society advances technologically. Modernization is no longer optional, it is essential. Importantly, the APP recognizes that the technological advancement must strengthen access to justice than deepen inequality. The ANC therefore supports the balanced approach that combines digital systems with continued physical service accessibility. The APP also responds to broader national priorities around safety, resilience, and state capability. The targets relating to the uninterrupted court functionality during power and water disruptions, together with investments in security infrastructure and backup systems, are particularly important in the current environment. The allocation of over 127 million in CARA funding toward court security infrastructure, ICT systems, digitization, and judicial capacity building demonstrate government's commitment to strengthening the institutional resilience of the judiciary. The NC especially welcomes the focus on judicial capacity building relating to the organized crime, money laundering, and related offenses. This is aligned with government's broader efforts to intensify the fight against corruption and transnational criminal network. The NC also knows the APP's emphasis on the judicial education and professional development through the South African Judicial Education Institute, SAJE. The blend judicial education programs, newsletters, and litigation management reports all contribute towards strengthening judicial excellence and consistency. A transformed and capable judiciary requires continuous professional development and institutional learning. The NC further appreciates the APP's recognition of transformation imperatives, including gender representation and inclusion of persons with disabilities within the institution. Transformation remains a constitutional and moral imperative for all institutions of state. The NC is also encouraged by the realism that reflected in this APP regarding fiscal pressures. The OCJ openly acknowledges funding constraints and projected shortfalls arising from the transfer of shared services responsibilities. Yet, despite these pressures, the APP demonstrates disciplined prioritization, phased implementation, and measurable targets. This reflects a responsible governance under constrained economic conditions. The NC has consistently argued that fiscal discipline must not come at the expense of state capability and service delivery. Rather, resources must be directed toward programs that improve outcomes for the people. In this regard, the APP demonstrates a conscious effort to ensure that expenditure is linked directly to institutional performance and improved service delivery outcomes. The NC remains the leader of society because it continues to place the needs of the people at the center of governance. A functioning judiciary is fundamental to social stability, constitutional democracy, economic confidence, and the protection of rights. This APP advances the objective of a judiciary that is independent yet accountable, technologically modern yet accessible, and constitutionally grounded yet responsive to the lived realities of all South Africans. For these reasons, House Chair, the ANC support budget vote 27 and the 2026-2027 annual performance plan of the Office of the Chief Justice. I thank you.
The last speaker is the Honorable the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson, for the comments. Let me appreciate members of Parliament who participated in the debate. I think we all agree in the issues that we are raising about the funding for the OCJ, but generally for the justice system. I think this is one of the things that we have acknowledged, and hence we had to take efforts in the CARA funding to take some of the money to redirect it to the Office of the Chief Justice. We'll continue to look at that. We are engaging consistently with Minister of Finance. I must say, he has been open to the engagement and quite a number of areas has been helpful. And we'll continue to that. We're looking forward to the increase of support in this area of work. Honorable members, I agree with the concerns around the delay in allocation of dates and concerns of capacity of the judiciary as reflected by several members of Parliament here. Hence, we have initiated a process where we engage with the Minister of Finance together with the judiciary to start the creation of 50 additional posts as per the recommendation of the Justice Moseneke report that recommended that we must add 20% of the posts per a high court. We have now started finalizing a submission that will make to Treasury in terms of the support team that is required, the tools of trade and accommodation. And we've agreed with National Treasury that we'll do this by June latest. Again, I must raise, members, the concern around COE that is higher is not founded. Compared to other portfolios, this portfolio is based on human capital. So you need researchers, you need law researchers, you need registrars. I had this yesterday as well. So we've got to look at portfolios and compare. So here it's human capital that we need. So you'll have more people compared to other portfolios. And that's why you'll have higher COE because of the clerks, the registrars, and that's what we need. Then another issue is what is raised that there are vacancies not in the OCJ. And I acknowledged this yesterday. I must comment and welcome the announcement by the president of the appointment in the NPA of Advocate Bell as NPS, DNTPP, NPS, and Advocate Mqejoy as DNTPP, AFU. That's really commendable. So we are closing the gaps even in the portfolio. But here, we only have the acting Secretary General. We don't have vacancies. All vacancies are filled, especially at senior level. We agree with the assertion that the judiciary must be led by the Chief Justice, including the ministry and not, including the magistracy and not the ministry. That, I think, is what I've been advocating for. And we want to see the single judiciary-led administration led by the Chief Justice. We committed to that. That's why we started there. Again, in the debate, there are several policy matters that are raised during this debate that are based on our interpretation of what is to be, or our interpretation of single and independent judiciary-led court administration. And I think when we bring this matter for the debates and the engagement in the committee, we'll look into it. There are issues of accountabilities that members have raised, the role of the executive, the role of parliament in terms of oversight and all those things. I think many members have raised here, but I think what will have to be the basis for us to work on is to be able to utilize the Constitution as the interpretation of what our forebears envisaged in terms of what role of each state will do, each arm of the state's responsibility is. The last area I want to raise, and which I appreciate all parties here, the consensus in the House, all parties represented, where they spoke about the importance of respecting our judiciary, respecting our courts, and also, I think that for me, I welcome it, so that it doesn't state that when I'm not happy about this judgment, then I start saying, no, the judiciary is captured. So we must agree, like we are clapping today, that the judiciary is independent, the judiciary is making right decisions. We must continue in that way, and I encourage it very much. I'm happy to hear all parties in that regard. I'm so happy. I'll give feedback to all of them that all parties in parliament respect their independence and they don't believe that they are captured. So with that, thank you for your support, and we look forward to that matter again.
Honorable members, honorable member, the minister already spoke. Do you have a point of order? Well, honorable member, that's not a point of order. Okay, that concludes the debate and the business of this mini-plenary session. The mini-plenary will now rise.